Hello. Again, a change of scenery, setting, but it's a familiar living room where, have you ever wondered why living room is called drawing room in British and Indian circles? Drawing room, and so you draw people into a conversation. In the living room, you're living it up. All right, so that's the difference. So anyways, I spoke about the psychology of stupidity, the book, earlier this morning, and here it is. It's by Jean-Francois Marmion, and I looked at the chapters. They're all scary. I don't want to welcome the gods in my direction, so I chose Thinking Fast and Slow, a conversation with Daniel Kahneman, 77. The gentleman is he's a winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics, an emeritus professor of psychology at Princeton University, Professor Kahneman. So he talks about a system one and system two. The system one, grasps or uses the brain quickly, interpretations of the world. System one produces interpretations of the world in his own words, and which are decisions that are approved by system two. System two is more complex. It controls thought and behavior. Unlike system one, system two doesn't have direct automatic access to the memory. So more of it, it's much too slow. So say, we could, so both can make mistakes, and, so fast and slow. So here's what I came up with. And what would Professor Kahneman say? All right, system one and system two. All right. First one, system one, multiplication. So, how would you classify this? Human race or my income? System one, human race, fast. System. But there was a time when it was really fast. All right. I have to say this. All right. Two, addition, recipe. You're adding things to make a certain cake, a certain pie, or a fried and slab cake, pie. Cake came first, and or a nice crispy or chips, potato chips. So the second, of course, is the mathematical operation. Three, minus the quality, certain qualities which my supervisor has developed, he would still be the same old man, maybe. We hope. And I've begun to wear the square dial because I'm hoping our supervisor, who's rumored to have become a transgender woman, is going to go back to being the way he was, the reassuring man he was. So second is, of course, minus the mathematical operation. All right. Four, integral. So key. This is integral to the solution. All right, to the integral solution. Second mathematical operation in calculus. Five, differential. Differential brake fluid. Cars. Mathematical operation in calculus. All right, differential of a expression, mathematical expression, differential of cos x is minus sine x, or so that. All right. So next chapter I chose. It's not a bad read, I would suggest. But if you have more powers over you were of the happenings of your life, you could just choose any chapter at random. But it's a book, all right. And books, I read crime dramas, and so they're all red alert, all right. There's a light bulb that should strike up, light up red, flash. It should flash red. So this is my bookmark. Closer. And Montreal Canadiens did become runners-up in the Eastern Conference Finals. So something to hope for, And and of course the Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup. But Vegas Golden Knights gave them a good run for their money. Anyways, coming back to my discussion, this chapter is Stupidity from the Child's Perspective, a conversation with Alison Gopnik. Wonder if she's the daughter of Adam Gopnik, the New Yorker writer. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a coincidental last name, surname. Or last name. So then, surname, last name, the whole discussion, I'll come back to it later. This person, one of the really remarkable things I discovered is that Wordsworth, for example, was a babysitter. He made money when he was young and just starting out as a poet by being a kind of caregiver for the child of a rich guy. Darwin had a lot of interesting things to say about babies. He actually spent a lot of time observing his own children in a really careful way. So that, and then, the next question, the author has brought out all this from these psychology experts. So, so they people in olden days thought that babies could bear surgery without anesthetics, and so I guess so. My thought here, so that's right, the lady says, and of course, um, the babies were unconscious. Maybe they just, became unconscious because of the pain. You read in books people being without anesthetics back then. Laudanum, but I think they used to give a few drops of laudanum, and then that used to numb the pain or put them to sleep, and then they would perform the surgery. So same thing for the babies. I think something sleep-inducing drug. So anesthetics, but then as modern medicine progressed, you cannot give babies anesthesia and etc. because they're too young to take in a lot of. Back in my day, also you could give, half a pill and that sort of thing, adult pill. We had doctors in the family who approved of this sort of medication, but as pediatrics has progressed, it's not right to give them any sort of form of medication, babies. So circumcision is painful. That's the whole proof of this whole question and answer. Circumcision is painful to babies, and so they should not do circumcise. They shouldn't circumcise babies. So right? So babies will cry. It'll be painful, and when they pee, it's going to be painful. And small baby, why do you have to hurt baby boys so much? Do not do such things to baby boys, because I have to. Sound like a so small. I was reading child psychology. Sound like a small child. Anyways, coming back to my last point, this whole idea came up of synergistic meanings to words, or not synergistic, dual meanings to words, different perspectives to the same word. Because in Kannada, I thought the kiss, I said, right? Kiss, it has the same word. Kiss, pearl, same word. System 1, system 2. System 2, kiss should be system 2, but then it could be too long, then it becomes painful. So the system, both of them should be, pearl should be system 2. The way of wearing a pearl necklace and getting a pearl necklace should be system 2. All right, complicated procedure, right? Getting approval from your husband, and then unless they're fake pearls. My husband, got worried. I'd made pearl millet, and I say, looking for pearls, and no answering, murmur from him, or word of approval. So I said, well, we're fake pearls, reassured. He was reassured. Second one, brother-in-law in Canada. All right, brother-in-law and feelings, same word. Sister's husband and feelings, same word. Feelings that come out of you because of aesthetic feelings, that sort of thing. Third, I'm not too positive about this. Weapon and meaning. I'm not too positive though. Meaning is for sure. Weapon, the the science of weaponry is the Artha Shastra, and Artha is meaning, but I have no idea if the first part, the same word, same as meaning, is weapon. Yeah, is weapon. All right. So signing out, Gayatri B. Sitaram. I hope you enjoy this book and have yourself a wonderful day. All right. Thank you.